All right, Jen, why don't you just start out by introducing yourself?
Well, hello, Tamara. My name is Jennifer Dekezel, and I am a police officer with Toronto.
Okay, so you are currently stationed in 23 Division, right? Tell us what
23
you do
division.
there.
So I've been there for a few years now. I got transferred there a few years back, and I'm in the family services unit. So we deal with children, some sexual assaults, domestics. We do some high risk offender stuff in there, elder abuse. It's a wide range of stuff in the family services unit. So I'm a detective constable there.
Okay. So that sounds like a really perfect role for you, just knowing a little bit about you and your heart. And we'll get to that later. But first, I want you to bring me back to the beginning. Where are you from? Because I know you're not from Ontario. Tell me about your childhood growing up and how you got into policing.
Okay. So yeah, you're right. I'm from the prairies. I'm from Manitoba, a very small town, like 400 people.
What's it
Uh,
called?
Balder.
Boulder, Manitoba, 400 people. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it
And
like growing up in little Manitoba, in a little small town Manitoba?
so everyone knows everyone. And our high school consisted of like K to 12 was all in one building,
Yeah.
one story building.
Wow.
And if you wanted to have like a volleyball team, you had to, like the whole high school had to, like a girls volleyball team was grade 9, 10, 11, 12
Wow.
in order for us to have a volleyball team. And so what we would do is it was great because we'd play other small towns, Glenbrook, Cypress, Somerset, and we'd have all these rivalries. And it was great. We mostly spent like our times doing very simple things, right? We always ate at home. Very rarely did we go to a restaurant. We only had a couple in our town. There's one gas station, and I think sometimes you have to, if you want gas, you have to call the owner and he'll come over.
Really?
It's so small. One post office, and in one hospital, but there's like I think like 7 churches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yes. No, but it's very simple. So picture prairie land, green, fresh air. Everyone knows everyone. If you see something out of place, if something, you immediately know, like if there's a child wandering, it's oh, that's such and such child. Or if anything bad happens in town, I can tell you that it is talked about the next morning at the local coffee shop with all the locals. So if you ever wanted to know anything going on in our town, go to the local coffee shop.
That is like one of the first lessons that journalists learn or should learn, that if you're covering a story in a small town, you go to the coffee shop first because people are going to be talking about it there. Okay, so did you like that? Did you like the small town living?
Well, I didn't know really any different. Um, I was adopted when I was a baby. My mom and dad couldn't have children, so they adopted myself and my brother. And it was I was adopted at such a young age that I've always known I was adopted. So again, from a small town, you're put in the local newspaper that adopted this child. So it's not like in a big city. I hear stories here where there's children that never, actually just recently, one of my colleagues disclosed to me that he never knew that he was adopted.
Wow.
And that definitely doesn't happen in small towns because the word will get out like tomorrow on
Immediately.
that.
So
Yeah.
how old were you when you were adopted?
I was about 4 months old when I was adopted. Yeah.
Okay. So what was
The
that
other
like? Like you said, you've always known. What was that like growing up knowing that you were adopted in this small town?
what was it like? Um, it had its ups and downs. There was feelings and emotions that I went through that I didn't really know why I was feeling a certain way. My parents are like my dad's 6 feet tall and, you know, big Dutch boy. My mom's Scottish, you know, very, very, you know, beautiful white skin. And I definitely am not lighter skinned. And so I definitely knew I wasn't adopted. And from our small town, there was a lot of, you know, taller, whiter people. And so I did feel different. I got called a lot of names growing up because I didn't actually know my nationality. I had a clue, but I didn't know. So it's a feeling as I've gotten older, I've realized that I was, you know, always felt different, always felt, and not like better than or any, I just felt like I was just like plunked in and looking around, wondering like, where do I belong? That's really what it was. The biggest hurdle in my life is feeling like I belong.
You said you had a clue to your nationality. What was that clue?
The clue was, it said my mother was Italian, but there was no birth father on there. So I had no idea any other part of me. And then come to find out, you know, years later, that there's a Spanish, Indian, African twist to me.
Wow.
You know, it makes sense why I put hot sauce on everything. And why my hips move, you know, more than I want them to at times.
They're just moving sometimes. You just don't know what's going on down there. Did you do one of those DNA tests? Is that how you got those answers?
I did. Wow. I did. So I bought one for my brother, who's also adopted, for his birthday. And, you know, it was a 2-for-1 deal. So I was like, well, I'll spit in this thing and see what comes up. And that was just last year. And I couldn't believe it. I was sitting on my couch and there wasn't a big expectation. You know, I'd already found my birth mother years ago when I was 18. And so I know my sisters, I have 2 sisters, I have a brother, they're amazing. But again, my birth mother couldn't give as much information to my father's background. We're going back almost 50 years.
Wow.
Right? I don't want to give my age here.
I'm like, what? I thought you were like 23. 23 division.
Yes,
I'm just joking, but really. Okay. Wait.
Okay.
You're 18. Are you comfortable telling that story about how you met your birth mother? Like, that's comfortable.
So I'm 18, and that in Manitoba gave the legal right at that point, because I was an adult. Things have changed now, but for me to go and see if there's a match. So a match means when my birth mother has put her name in and I put my name in, and then they say, wow, like this is a match. And then they, you know, back then it was like landline. So, or you write a letter, and that's how I would be in contact. And so right away, and to tell you this, I walked in with one of my friends from Manitoba, and I said, you know, hi, it's my 18th birthday. You know, my name is Jennifer. I don't really know what to do. This is, you know, this is very exciting for me. When I'm so nervous, you know, I want to know if my birth mother has looked for me all these years. And she was an elderly woman. She was around like 70, I'd say in her 70s, like, right. And she turns back to this other lady behind her, and I remember her name was Martha. She said, Martha, come here. And so this lady from the back comes up, and she's a bit older as well. There's some younger people working there too, but she comes up and she's like, this is Jennifer. And I was like, I felt so weird because I didn't know what was happening. And it turns out my birth mother, every single year, had gone back to that adoption society and said, I gave my daughter up. I just want to know if she's okay. So every year when she came back, she asked the same question, and they knew her. And they said, we think we're going to have some great news for you, but we have to wait. So give us, you know, up to 2 weeks. Turns out I got the information like within 24 hours.
Are you
Uh,
serious?
yeah. They said your mother's dying to meet you, and here's her name, and here's where she lives, and you have, two sisters and a brother. And at that point, I'm like, I have sisters. All these years, I could have borrowed clothes. I could have, all these things, or all these, things that you think if you don't ever have a sister, you
Yeah.
think, this is what you could do. But I'm
Was
very,
she
very
far? Was
blessed.
she far away, or did she live
Windsor,
in
Windsor.
Windsor? Okay. So it's pretty far. I mean, you could drive from there, but it's probably a flight, right?
It's a flight. Yeah. So she got married and, obviously had 3 children. And so I planned for that amazing flight over. And that was probably one of the most, I don't even know the word. I actually don't know the word. It was like an out of body experience to even hear her voice on the phone. She has a beautiful Italian, strong accent.
Wow.
Um, yeah, she's stubborn and hard-headed and giggles. And so if you hear me giggling and it's that a little bit of annoying giggle and cackle throughout this interview, that's from her. That's all her.
That is so beautiful. So you went and she was there with your 3 siblings.
She was there with my 3 siblings at Windsor Airport. The whole is one of those smaller planes. So it was actually the whole plane that came out. It was pretty remarkable. The plane, they knew that I was going to meet my birth mother because it was my first time on a plane. And so I had my head down, and the lovely flight attendant was helping me, and she brought me into the cockpit, which I'm not sure if that helped me or made it worse, but it was like the world was in front of me.
Jen, you're blowing my mind right now. I don't want to get too far ahead of us, but I'm aware of a story of something that you did for a girl that was
Yeah.
remarkably similar. We're going to get to that, but just so you know why I'm reacting the way I am, because I'm thinking about pictures that I've seen. For anybody watching this, when I worked at CTV, I did a story about Jen and a program that she runs called Girls Will Be Girls, and we're going to get to that. But it's I'm learning so much about, like, this is such interesting context to the person that you are today, and where you've come from. Like, what a remarkable, beautiful journey. Did you then you stayed in touch with your birth mother, and you have a relationship with her and your siblings to this day?
I've stood up in all of their weddings, and I'm a proud aunt to 2 beautiful nieces, 3 amazing nephews, and as I said, I love them dearly. I can't picture my life without them. They're like we just gel. We just gel. My brother's a musician, and I just admire him so much. He's like, we just connected right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can all just give each other funny looks. Like we're very silly people. We don't take life too seriously at times. We very silly. Like we play pranks on each other. I'll just go up and slap my brother across the face, and he'll keep walking. Like I know it sounds a little hard, but we do that stuff. We flare our nostrils and take photos up our nose. Like just very, very mature, fun.
Yeah, yeah, right. You can laugh at yourself. That's awesome. That's awesome. Have your parents met your birth mother and your other siblings?
Yes, they have. So my mother has multiple sclerosis, the one who
Oh, I'm
lives back in
sorry.
Manitoba.
Mhm.
So she's the last time she was able to fly was on my graduation.
Wow.
So I flew her out for my graduation at down at Nathan Phillips Square 15 years ago now. But they still live in that house in Boulder, Manitoba.
Wow.
And my birth mother flew out, and they met in Manitoba, where my mom, like my birth mother's originally obviously from.
Wow, that must have been like such a powerful union. Okay, so you're 18, just to go back a little bit more. So you're 18, you're united with your birth mother and your long lost siblings. Where
Yes.
where does your life go from there? You're done high school. Where does your life go from there?
I took a turn of just an opportunity. I won't go into details of it. It just happened to be an opportunity to move with a girl that I had met and she had a job at Bayview Village, and she said, here we can move to the big Toronto. And I only ever saw Toronto on
Yeah.
TV on our little,
Toronto, Toronto.
yeah, yeah, when it was just like the big name, big word, and in our small town, it was just like, and it's just like, wow, like, are you kidding me?
Mhm.
So at the age of 18, I moved to Toronto right after,
Wow.
which was crazy. I just had met my birth mother. I didn't move there because of her. I moved there because of this opportunity. And the way I look at it now, it was just the universe putting me there, because that girl that I had met that had given me this opportunity moved away 3 months later, and I was there at 18 here in this big city all by myself at 18. So
How do you adjust going from a town of, did you say it was 400 or 600 people?
yeah, it fluctuated. People had kids.
Yeah, people have kids, exactly. People are born, people die. So going from this small town, less than 1,000 people, to this huge metropolis, millions of people, what was that adjustment like for you?
Brutal,
Really?
brutal. Yeah, I came with $200 and a backpack, and yeah, there was hard times.
Hmm. How did you make it through those hard times?
Uh, Faith, some good luck, and some good people around.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you ever want to go home? Were you ever tempted to go back to small town living?
I there was, especially in the first year, it was difficult. I'd never been away that long or that far. I couldn't afford a ticket back. And I didn't want to tell anyone that. I was too proud.
Hmm.
And I told everyone I was making this big move to Toronto, and I didn't want to fail anyone. I didn't want anyone to look at me as a failure.
Hmm. What would you tell your younger self now if you could go back and give her a piece of advice back then? Do you know what you would tell her?
Don't be so trusting of everyone, because really was. I was this rose-colored glass girl who looked at everyone with bright, loving eyes, and who basically um, looked at the best in everyone and didn't think there was a whole lot of bad. And so I had put myself into some scary situations at times. And I just, as I said, with a bit of luck and faith, and some great upbringing from my parents, I made it through. From sometimes I didn't know where I was going. Like, sometimes there was, not food, there was not necessarily a place to live. um yeah.
It's remarkable to think, when you're 18 years old, you're like, I'm a woman, I'm an adult, I have freedom now, I can go and do these things. But now when you look back and you see that you're just a kid, right? And not
Yeah.
just a kid, but like with no life experience of, like, you didn't, I guess you sort of hopscotched a little bit to the bigger center of Windsor, but
No.
really, like, you didn't. Like, you went from small town to one of the smallest towns in Canada, probably, to the biggest city in Canada. Okay, so how do you then get, I know you said, faith, good people, luck. Where do you go from there? You get out of that dark period in your life, and where does your life go from there?
And I never, just so to tell you, I never felt in a dark period. I look back going, whoa, like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, I just was like, okay, this sucks, but okay, what do I got to do? Right. And I would, go in the newspaper and apply and go talk to people. And then I was waitressing, I waitressed, downtown. I had about 3 jobs at one time. I was just like I worked at Kmart, and then I worked for a company that I had been in contact with back in Manitoba, and they it was called Zentel at the time, and they were affiliated with like local police and fire, and did charity stuff across Canada and the US, and it was mostly for Special Olympics. So I enjoyed that. I started out telemarketing, And then I moved up to sales and sales manager and human resources. And I became like the CEO's assistant.
Wow.
So paperwork and filing, like, poor thing.
Prepared you for policing and all the paperwork, I guess.
Yeah, I'm still not good at it. I'm still got stuff everywhere. But that was great because that introduced me to a lot of other people, and basically that company traveled. One of the biggest events that I toured on, I managed a tour called the NHL Old Timers. So I sang, it was like Guy Lafleur, Marcel Dion, Frank Mahovlich, Johnny Bauer. So I traveled with them on a benefit tour across Canada, and like in all the Vancouver and Winnipeg and Toronto, and it was all these wonderful places and big. So I did the announcing and sang the national anthem and did the
Wow.
yeah, I basically dealt and I present the check to the Special Olympics. So it was like the game day hostess kind of thing, right?
You sang
And
the national anthem? You're a singer, Jen?
oh, I sing, but it's honestly, they just had really no one else. I like to sing. I grew up singing country music.
Okay.
Yes, that's one thing I did. Grew up like singing country music. Everybody sitting around. You asked what we did in our small town. That's what we did. We played the spoons. We did whatever. We harmonized together. My uncles had a band called Country Cousins.
Wow.
We sang a lot, but to be quite fair, there's no that I'm not the best singer. It's just
I think you're probably being very humble. I have a feeling you're probably a remarkable singer.
I can hold a tune, but yeah.
Well, then you're already a step ahead of me. So there you go. Although I would say that of my, there's 4 kids in my family and three of us girls. And I gotta say to my sisters who might be watching this that I am the best Cherry sister singer in our family.
Okay.
At least in the shower, I sound that way. You're saying I don't set the bar very high, Jen.
The shower's great because it gives that echo,
I love it. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you go from the Old Timers tour, and how old are you at this point, would you say, when you're at this point in your career?
So I'm traveling across Canada. I'm about 22, 23, but remember, this is a hockey tour, so it stopped. So in the interim, I moved to Miami. So I was in Miami I've lived in Miami for a couple of years, driving a motorcycle, ocean life, not surfing, but just being that beach life.
Yes.
And then my visa ended there and I had to come back, and I was still with that company, and I was ready just to I wanted to make some more money. I wanted to have a change. I'd been with them for so long. And at that point I worked in a labor law firm downtown. So I had the downtown Richmond Street, and I worked for Kaylee Ray for many years. Loved working for them, and I did some TV work on the side. There was like a show on the W Network that I did for a couple of years.
What did you do?
I just basically had to be my weird, funky like self. I just played me.
Wait, you had a show? What?
I didn't have a show. There was a group of 5 girls that they picked that I didn't even know I was auditioning. I was just talking with somebody, and apparently it was the audition, and she wanted me to come. It was the producer, who I'm still friends with this day, Paula. And so literally they pulled me onto this show, and it was 5 girls from Toronto that were all different backgrounds, all different people. And basically it was the life and times of a single woman living in Toronto with all these different diverse backgrounds. So it was like being a fly on the wall for men to hear what we had to say. So it was on Slice and W, but it was just a little fun thing.
I had no idea about this. Look at all these many layers of you. Okay, keep going. So how long did you do that for?
A couple of years, with a law firm, a few years, and then I wanted to start up a charity group, and I wanted to help children. That was really where for many years wanted to do that. And I was trying to figure out how. And I ended up being with that All-Star Hockey Legend tour. I became really good friends with police officers. And, one of the biggest things, one of my best friends, Al, said was, Jenny, you can get along with the likes of like Eddie Shack and Bobby Hall and stuff. You can get along with, police officers, like mostly male. You could do it. And I said, I'm 4'10.5". I didn't grow up with police officers around. So it was a belief for myself. More people had belief in me than I did for myself, if that makes sense. And then the more I looked into it, the more I was like, you know what, maybe I could do this. So I started, I was 30 years old. I started training more. I had to kind of go back and learn math. I didn't know math in grade 10 when I was in grade 10. So I had to relearn it and tutor. So it was and also, at 30 years old, your body changes. You're not as fit as you are in your 20s. So all of this stuff I did, and I started training, this became a mission. And I was looking into what policing is, and I was surrounded by awesome police officers, right? That became, and still to this day, very, very close friends of mine, because with the associations across Canada, they were my clients with the NHL hockey tour.
Okay.
So I dealt with them all the time.
Okay.
And so it was a great relationship, and that's where it opened my eyes to policing, and then the belief that I could do it. Like back home in Manitoba, I think I told you before, we had one RCMP officer that we might see every 6 months, and then my dad be driving on the highway and go from like 100 down to 50, and we'd all sit there and like it was like, oh my God, there's a police officer.
Your view of policing growing up was, if police are there, we're in trouble. We got
big trouble.
Yeah.
Big trouble.
Wow.
And we didn't really have big trouble. Like the most news we'd have in our town is like the cows got out of the field and blocked the road.
Wow. Wow. It's so cliche, but what a beautiful thing to live like a cliche small town life as well. I gotta say, I love Toronto, but your childhood also sounds like it has some like beautiful parts in it. Okay, so you decide to go for policing. So when do you actually get into the process? When do you apply? How long does it take you to get hired?
So I don't remember this, going back 15 years. I don't exactly remember when I applied, but I know that it took a little better than a year and a half to get in. With all the different stages and different steps. I also failed the physical the first time. And I just remember I came back with a vengeance. And I remember flying over that wall.
Oh, was it the wall for you?
Yeah, well, it was the whole combination that, I even had good friends of mine, want this so bad for me as well. And they, we called it the, I don't know what they call it now, so I won't use the old term, but we pulled this big thing
Dummy?
that looked, it was called a dummy.
I'm saying dummy. No, I'm just saying this because I don't know if you saw, I know you were out of the country for a while, but one of the first profiles that we did on TPS Trust was with Detective Sergeant Tiffany Castell with
Oh, I love her.
Oh, love her. I love her too. I love her. She also failed the physical the first time, and it was the dummy. I think it's okay to say, I don't know. I apologize if I'm offending anybody. I hadn't even thought about that.
One of the biggest issues I had, or like with policing right now, is just wondering, or not even policing, just being a human. I don't want to offend people. I feel like I had a conversation with my colleague yesterday, and he said something to the effect of, there was like 5 different things we had to different terms. And I'm all about the adaption and everything else, and opening my eyes to, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe we said that before. Yes. And now, but it's becoming to the point where I don't want to offend people. So I'm having a difficult time forming sentences at times.
I know it's true. You know what? While we're talking here, I'm going to Google, can we still use the term dummy? That's what I usually do. Not like, can we? Sometimes we need to use dummy or empty or artificial subject when there's no subject attached to the verb. Okay, that's sort of like more of a grammar thing. I'm seeing if there's like a better term than dummy. We're like totally getting off, but I feel the same.
Artificial. So I had, I had to drag that. that thing. And my friends would, to help me, would let them, like they were, my buddy Tom was 190 pounds. He let me drag him through the park.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, grass stains and all. Just the
Oh,
amount of love and support
that's a
around. And
friend.
I knew it was for me. I knew it was for me. I knew I wanted it.
Mm.
Um, and I have no regrets.
Hmm. You know what? You're reminding me of something. It's been sort of a recurring theme through a lot of these conversations, and even conversations that I've had with police officers, far before this campaign. And that is what a supportive community it is, like getting into policing. Whether it's people sharing stories about people that came up to them, as with you, and said, "Hey, you could do this. You should join us," and like really vouching for them. Or I've had senior officers even before my current role in this coming to me, and if I say, "Oh, such and such is thinking about becoming a police officer," and senior officers saying, "Give them my cell phone number, tell them to call me. We're looking for good people like that." Like that I think is something that might surprise general members of the public. Like it's just that sense of community is very strong, like right from the get-go, even before you become a police officer.
Right. And I think we talked too that I just came back from Greece, and the camaraderie is there to you walk into anywhere in the world and you say you're a police officer to another police officer, and you already have that amazing brotherhood and sisterhood, like instant.
Mhm.
And also they know where all the local like good foods and coffees are.
Yes, they'll give you the extra tips. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were hired, and where did you start out with TPS?
54,
Hey,
54, the old, pretty much, I think probably the oldest building
yeah,
for
that's
Toronto
right.
Police.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
it's
it
the
was.
oldest.
Yes.
The
Yes.
station that cares. The
Yeah.
station that cares had a lot of character. It's now shut down, kind of. I don't know if it's
Uh-huh.
reopening. I don't know, but
I don't
it's
remember.
amalgamated with 55. So I
Yeah.
went to 55.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so you went from 54 and you were, I guess, primary response when you started. Is that right?
Yes.
How did you
Yeah.
find that? Like, and for anybody who's watching and doesn't know, it's basically you're jumping from one 911 call to the next. How did you find that? Because you're such a positive person, and then suddenly you're thrown into like mostly, dealing with people on the worst days of their lives, right?
Well, that's policing. So that's policing in a nutshell. And it wasn't because I was 30. I was a bit more in my mind. Was a bit more well versed. I had gone through, as we talked about, a few things in my life. So my rose-colored glasses weren't so rosy at
Mhm. A
that
bit
point.
tinted at that point, just a little bit darker. Yeah.
So it wasn't so much of a shell shock when I saw certain things,
Mhm.
but I did see certain areas uh, that needed improvement, or that I wanted to work with, at a greater level.
Mhm. Okay, so what were some of those things that you were drawn to that you wanted to get more involved in?
Well, the two things that I've always had a heart for is the elderly and children.
Mm.
So I feel like the elderly can be the forgotten, and the children are our future, right? And we need to work with them in order to, I guess, get the world to be where we want it to be, because that's really where we need to take our time, energy, love, support, and nurture. And I just feel those are two areas. So I I went for a call at one of the schools for bullying, and I noticed that there was a lot of bullying going on. The word bullying was rampant,
Mm.
and I felt like there was a need for a children's group, a young female. I know what it's like to be a young female. I know what it's like to have some of the issues, body issues, feeling different, um, not feeling like you're accepted, wanting to be like everyone else, and just trying to navigate, and just our own female stuff that's going on, right?
Mm.
And so I started a girls group, with four girls, out of a school in East York called Girls Will Be Girls, as you are very familiar with, Mara.
I love
And
it. Keep telling us about this program as if I know nothing about it, because people who are watching won't.
well, I started with four, and now I have over 40. We gain four new girls every 2 years. And the younger girls that they usually started around the age 8, So the younger girls have now, graduated and university. And so we watch them and support them and love them all throughout their life at whatever capacity they, require.
Wow.
So it's a mentoring. We have a lot of fun. We do trips. We have the simplicities where we just go for a beautiful walk and talk about life. Sometimes I'll just bring a fruit tray and a veggie tray, and we'll sit around, and eat some strawberries and chat about like the week, which is very important because the girls that I have in the program are from a very, very high risk, high crime area.
Mm.
So police officers, growing up, maybe some of them are immigrants as well, and police officers weren't always like the best thing they've ever, or their association with police
Mm.
police weren't the best
Yeah.
when they were
Not
younger.
necessarily positive interactions or, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, their interactions. That's the word I was looking for. So, and then, we always say bridging that gap, but that is true. Like that's really what it is, because the children come to the girls group, they have a great time. The parents at first are a bit apprehensive at times, right?
Mm.
And then they realize that this is about care and love and support.
Mm.
And then they tell their friends, and then that is from a high crime, high risk area, and that's really the ripple effect. And over the years, I think it's around 14 years now, the program's been running.
So tell us about the sorts of things that you do with this group. I know you mentioned like, chatting, everything like that, but you've also like, you've been to the aquarium, you've been to CN Tower, didn't you? Right. And then you've done some like pretty like monumental things too with some of these girls. Are you comfortable sharing some of those stories?
Which
Like I was referring to earlier, maybe we can go to this story because I sort of foreshadowed it earlier when you were telling us about how you went and met your birth mother on the plane for the first time. You had that experience with one of your girls will be girls. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was awesome. So one of my little girls, I say little girls now, she's 22 years old, and
Oh,
yeah, she's a stunner. She's beautiful. And she over the years had always, pined to meet her father, and her father couldn't afford to come to Toronto. And he was in Miami, and she couldn't afford to head over to Miami. So they were trying to FaceTime at times when they're, and call, but he would lose his, he'd not lose, but he wouldn't have a phone at times. It was just difficult. And she just always wanted to meet him and to, you know, uh, have that feeling of not necessarily the closure, but it was an opening of that relationship in person. It's a
mhm,
whole different feeling, to finally see her father for the first time.
mhm.
And again, yeah, you're right. I do know what that's like. And that feeling of wanting to know, not necessarily wanting anything from them, but just ever to see them and have that feeling. So, her mother was, one of the girl's mother is very supportive of that. And she asked if I would take her daughter. And I did. So that's what we did. We did that together, and it was a beautiful experience. Unfortunately, her mother has diabetes and wasn't able to travel, and so she was very happy that I did that, and it was a great experience for everybody all around. And yeah, it was
What
it
was
was
it like for you? Like thinking about your own history. And I imagine because I remember like back in the day, I don't even know how many years ago it was that I did that story about your program. I remember seeing a picture of you guys, and wasn't it in the cockpit? It was in
it
the
was in the cockpit.
so
Yeah,
you were invited into the cockpit when you went on your first plane ride to
I
meet
forgot. That's right.
your biological mother. And then I'm
You're
sorry,
right.
I got it wrong. I thought that she had gone to meet her biological mother, but now here she was. You guys are in the cockpit. Did you make that connection? Like,
No,
was your mind
no.
being blown on this trip? No.
No, I didn't make that connection. I just wanted to have that experience for her.
Mhm.
And so, yeah. And so getting off the plane, she was very, it's just that slow walk. And I'm like, are you ready? And it happened. It was beautiful. But the feelings I had for her was just pure joy, because I knew that feeling of meeting a parent for the first time and what that was going to feel like, for her, and that joy and happiness and that security. And it's your dad, right? That's her daddy. And dads are so important in young females' lives. And so this was an important meeting.
Amazing. Okay, so Jen,
Mhm.
tell me about this room that you're sitting in here, because when we first logged on, I said, look at you. Of course, you've got like a beautiful pink bed and you've got the flowers. Like that's not actually your bedroom. Where are you sitting right now?
No, no, this is the kids' room. So I they have all the ring lights and all the I don't even know how to unplug anything. So this is where I come to do any videos if they're not
Uh-huh.
in here. So I am I basically, this room was just a spare bedroom in my home. And I work with a company as well, a side business called Monate. And so it's like hair, skin,
Okay.
goodness. And they caught wind of my children's group a few years ago, and I was honored with a very, very heartfelt award from them. And they sponsored, basically they gave me this beautiful award with the company called the Hero Award, Chairman's Award. And they gave money towards my children's group. And one of the things that was wanted and needed was a revamp of their room. And so everything pink and fluffy and soft, and their pictures everywhere, and basically everything that they would need when they come here. So I don't know if you know that or I did tell you earlier, but you didn't know previous, that I'm a foster mother now, on emergency times. And so I wanted children, and of course, when now with fostering too, when boys come, I can do a quick revamp if that's for them, right? Because not everybody loves pink. It's usually a girly color. But I can whip this off, and this can all be changed up, and I think I've done it in about 8 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, I have
Impressive.
everything. Yeah, everything in that cupboard. It comes out and that goes
Wow.
back.
So
Yeah.
when you say that you're an emergency foster mother, what does that mean? Like under what circumstances are you getting a call?
The calls would be for, let's say there was children that were, left, and they're, malnourished. Their mother or father or both maybe has a drug addiction, or they aren't able to take care of them from a mental health aspect, or there's neglect for any reason. If there's multitude of things, so they get removed from the home, and let's say they need to go to the hospital. There's another example. They go to the hospital. There's a lot of babies that go into the hospital, and they're there until they can get a placement. Well, it's, the nurses and doctors can't be there and rock the babies and hold the babies and do all this. And so these are the types of things, and it's giving your love. Basically, the fostering is all about giving your love. It's, you don't get into, or no one should get into fostering if they're looking to make money, because it's not about making money. You don't make money fostering. It's has to be a calling, and to want to give that love to children in need.
You
So
give you give your love, Jen, in so many ways. You've given it in so many ways over the years. I wonder what impact this has had on you. All this giving, like what do you get in return from it? Because
my heart is full.
look at your face lighting up right now. Yeah, your heart
Yeah.
is full. Tell me about that.
My parents raised me it's from my parents that raised me. They literally instilled in me that, money is great, but love is important, and what you do for others and what you give to others. And, it's not about what I have or what you have or comparing. It's really a matter of coming together. And with these kids, they're so easy to love. Children are so easy to love, and it makes me happy. So people say to me, how can you do that? How can you spend your money? How can you do this much time or give so much time with this person, these children, or whatever? And the answer comes straight down to love. When you love, there is really no boundary to wanting to give. So, all the haters or all the questions that I've gotten over the years, because I've gotten criticism, is, that's the basic answer is I when you love, that's what you do. So, and I do that not to impress others, not to impress myself or make myself feel better or to save these children that I never ever wanted to be. And I think I told you that back when we did that first interview years ago. I remember saying to you, please don't, I don't want to look like a hero to, children in need of this. I want this, that's because that's not what I am or who I am. I want to showcase policing and police officers in a light where we're not, we don't just walk around with badges and drive fast and that's not it. Where there's people behind that uniform. There's hearts, there's souls, there's history, and I think too that's why you did started this campaign up, and I thank you for that because I was nervous, to be honest, when you asked me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I was nervous to say yes. As much as I'm an outgoing people person, and yes, the camaraderie is great with like teammates, but if you asked me if I would want to speak in front of 50,000 people, I would tell you versus speaking in front of 50 of my colleagues.
Mhm.
I would tell you that I would find it easier to speak in front of 50,000 like complete strangers.
Mm.
We can be very critical of one another,
Mhm.
so people watching, it's like it's just seems to be a bit of the nature at times. There's a lot of supportive people and there's a lot of people that root for each other and lift each other up, and when they're down, don't punch them while they're down, but it is there, right? So yeah, I was nervous to accept this.
Anybody, Jen, who's going to be critical hasn't actually watched the interview. So don't read the social media comments or anything like that. Those are people that don't watch the interview. They just know I'm sitting here talking to a police officer. Okay, so then going back to when you first met those police officers, when you were, traversing the country with a bunch of legendary NHL players, and these police officers told you, you could do it and you do so well. Like, are you happy with the choice that you made? Like, are you and considering that one of the things they said was, you do well and coming into a profession that is largely male. Like policing is a lot more diverse now than it was a few decades ago, but it is still mostly men. I mean, that's reflected in this very campaign. Most of the people I talk to are men because most police officers are still men. So how you found it as a woman and just with so much heart and so much care for all these people, are you happy with your career choice?
I'm very happy with my career choice. It's allowed me to do various things. It's allowed me to, but the number one thing is it's allowed me to do my charitable work. It's given me that platform to do that. I didn't set out necessarily to do that, but it's flourished that way, and I'm thankful for my policing career for that. Policing every single day, especially on the front line, we see if you asked me if I left at 6 o'clock in the morning and I get home at 7 o'clock at night on a 12-hour shift, and you asked me what I did in the day, I would literally have to look into my memo book and go through, because call to call, and it's all different, and just when you think you've seen it all, you didn't see it all. There's something else that comes up. And we try to use, like, as police officers, we try to support one another. We should do it more. I really am a firm believer that we should take care of each other a lot more than what we have been. And just to take special note on on calls that are very traumatic. They're not, there's only so much trauma that we can take in. So we have to be good to ourselves, taking care of our own mental health, but I really would I'd love to see more officers and to support one another and really take that approach to, you know, to help each other, really be that brother and sister, right? That brother and sisterhood that that we've all, you know, wanted to have when, especially when we first start policing.
What's your mental health care routine? I know you're good with the skin and the makeup and the hair, as you said, that side business. How do you take care of your brain when you're dealing with all that stuff on the job?
So I I I like yoga. So I go to the gym, I lift weights. I love music. So I will dance and sing in my living room on my own, crank it up, and just go wild. And
The best kind
that's
of dancing and singing by yourself, going wild. Nobody's watching.
nobody's watching, nobody can hear me. You know, you can be a superstar if you want to. You don't have to be, you know, and if you fall down, it's okay. Nobody saw.
And you got yourself back up. And Jen, you are a superstar. Is there anything else that you want people to know about you, police officers, policing in general?
I told you a lot.
Yeah, you did.
I told you a lot.
And I appreciate you sharing. Like, you are, as I mentioned, I did a story about your program years ago, and that's basically all I knew. You had this wonderful program, Girls Will Be Girls. And the reason I reached out to you is because I knew like there's more to this remarkable woman's story. And you've shared some of it with us today, and I'm so grateful. So thank you so much for your time and for your heart. And maybe we should end on, can you just read that stencil that you have behind you there in your foster kid's bedroom?
Sure, absolutely. So it's a stencil I got off Amazon. It says, "Family isn't always blood. It's the people in your life who want you in theirs, the ones who accept you for who you are, the ones who would do anything to see you smile, and who love you no matter what."
I love that. What a beautiful message for your kids, and it's a message that I think probably resonates with you so much. Like, what a journey you've had. Jen, thank you so much. We'll end it there.
Thank you, Tamara. Bye.